getting ready to strike at the very center of a Maelstrom. As of true days of next week, we expect for the new Fargoid pulse neutralizers to become available. I was lucky enough to be one of the first commanders to turn in an unclassified relic to Ram Ta, which earned me this interesting message, which essentially says that I am one of the lucky 50 for which module has been set aside without the need for me to grind the current ongoing community goal. And even then, only 70 commanders in total will have a pulse neutralizer to start. Everybody else will need to buy them off the market. Now, without knowing how much they're going to cost and what kind of modules or what kind of items they're going to need, it's impossible to say how long it's going to take to acquire one, even if it's possible to acquire it straight from a get-go on Thursday. So I'm quite excited about having this module straight on patch day and from the get-go, and I'm ready to pick it up and get into the thick of the action. But my skills are somewhat rusty, as I haven't really fought in Maelstroms in a number of weeks. So I'm going to spend some time to see if I can actually get some practice of fighting in the Maelstrom once again. As that I'm going to definitely need that skull in the coming week. This is my usual crate that I built, and that is specifically designed to fight in the Maelstrom, as it doesn't have any Guardian modules, and it's equipped with 4 enhanced gimbaled anti-xeno multi-cannons, 3 of them large and 1 of the mediums. The final medium slot on the crate is reserved for a thermal vent beam laser, which is more than enough to keep this ship cool without the need of heat sinks. So this ship, which is uncommon for an anti-xeno build, has no heat sinks. It only has the 2 caustic sink launchers. It has 2 caustic sink launchers instead of, well, as many as you could fit, because there's one spot which is reserved for the shutdown field module, which I expect to equip on Tuesday, and there's one that is instead for an enhanced Xeno scanner, which we're going to need for intelligence gathering of whatever is out there and see what information we can get. Now, even getting to the Maelstrom, as you know, is a bit of a feat, as you will constantly get interdicted when you're in the system, in addition to getting very likely hyperdicted on the way to the system, as you saw. But if you have a fast ship, like this crate is able to outrun even a Basilisk, since it runs at more than 540, you can quickly get away and just keep jumping. It's not going to stop or prevent us from getting hyperdicted and interdicted again and again and again, but we'll eventually get there. Once we do get there, the goal is just to fly around the Maelstrom. Maybe if we find a caustic crystal or 2, we're going to pick those up, since those are very rare, and they're the only ones that haven't been filtered out in my right-hand panel. But other than that, it's just practice of being in a Maelstrom, practice of maybe taking on a Cyclops if we find one, or just getting reacquainted with the very unconventional environment that the Maelstrom presents. Caustic string launchers need to be manually fired. If you're not familiar with these modules, they fill up as the caustic sort of accumulates on the ship, and then need to be manually triggered, which is why I have a special fire group just with the 2 caustic sink launchers to be able to use them in this kind of configuration. Unfortunately, there is no keybind. You can't somehow bind them to fire them with a dedicated button. You need to use fire groups like they're set up here. And you do need to fire them when they're full. They will not automatically fire. Unfortunately, it's something that you need to manually do. Another thing I'll say is you can and you should engineer caustic sink launchers for high capacity engineering, as it gives you 2 additional caustic sinks, which are quite handy. Not only because they give you more caustic sinks, but also if you need to synthesize them, you can get 7 out of each synthesis instead of just 5. Oh, and here I was talking instead of paying attention, so I kind of like dropped into Tyrannus the hard way. But again, it's fine. So, caustic heat sinks are what basically is going to keep you, for the most part, alive in this environment, which is otherwise going to constantly be doing caustic damage to your hull. You can synthesize caustic heat sinks. but it's relatively expensive. You need caustic shards and corrosive mechanisms. In particular, you need 4 caustic shards per synthesis, which gives you a total of 50 maximum synthesis for caustic swing launches. Still, that's quite enough to last in this environment for a very long time, and consequently should give us quite some endurance to do what we are planning to do on Tuesday in terms of intelligence gathering. So we're now in the caustic zone. As you can see, the left of my 2 caustic sink launchers is filling up, and it's almost full, so I'm about to dispose of the first sink. You can start seeing the big red cloud at the center of the environment, which we cannot penetrate obviously right now because we would be repulsed. And there's an interceptor down there. I think it's a Cyclops, by the way. If it's a Cyclops, we may decide to engage it. Let's see. Reminds me I need to adjust my pip settings because right now they're configured for a very different kind of ship. Caustic damage detected. So one thing is, the closer you get to the center of a storm, the more intense the caustic effect becomes. It's really weak at the outside when it just begins, but it becomes progressively stronger, and consequently the speed at which your sinks fill up changes quite dramatically once you get closer to the center. And I think we got the attention of this guy. I'm not sure what it is. I thought it was a Cyclops, but I'm actually not that sure at this point. But it is a Cyclops. Yeah, it's a Cyclops. Good. So I have mapped my Xenoscanner to the same fire group I use for my beam, as it makes scanning convenient. It's not an additional thing you need to worry about. It normally happens just while total orbiting. And then, once we have the scan, we can open fire on this thing. We've got multi-cannons. You can use missile racks too. The advanced missile racks are pretty powerful, but I find them very difficult to use in practice, and consequently I tend to stick with just multi-cannon builds. And we're taking down the first heart. And we got a little too close, and we got zapped by lightning. It happens. And by the way, our caustic sink launchers are full, as I forgot to fire them, which I now did. And hopefully we can manage to get out of range. Somehow I'm still getting caustic damage, even though caustic sink launches. Oh, there you go. They just killed caustic. It just took a long time because I guess I had accumulated quite a bit. Trying to get out of range of the interceptor, which I did, and pop a repair limpet while I'm at it, as I have taken quite a bit of damage. As you can tell, I'm quite rusty in terms of combat in the Maelstrom itself. Oof, I'm also getting very close to the overall cloud, and so I'm kind of getting out of the way. Now the good thing about the crate is it runs very, very cold. So, ooh, wow. I triggered a mine there. Fortunately, mines somehow don't interrupt the overall synthesis and repairs, which is a good thing. We got enough distance to sort of like stay in the clear. We're roughly halfway in terms of using our overall sink launcher, which is like really not a lot of time of endurance in the cloud overall, as you can tell, but at least we've gotten away from the center, so the chances that we're going to get yeeted by accident are low. On the flip side, we have an agitated swarm here, which is sort of sending missiles towards me, which is annoying, so I'm going to fly through it again to reset its state back to the standard state, and switch to silent running so I can boost past this guy while taking a moderately low amount of damage. But actually, I don't even have silent running map because I was doing hooning, and so I had a different key mapped as cargo scoop there. Another thing that I need to fix before next week. Alright, so the shield is down. Let's get into an orbit and let's get the next heart. There's these effects that yank your ship left and right while you're in the Maelstrom, which makes it very difficult to control. Fixed weapons are exceptionally hard to use in particular. Gimbal weapons work reasonably well on the flip side. We managed to do that without getting hit, which is nice. That also means our repairs continue. But we got hit by a storm, so never mind. Twice actually, so our repairs continue because we use an additional limpet. There you go. We're now sort of on the edge of the Maelstrom, you can see, because you can actually see stars on the outside of it while you're sort of in the caustic section inside, which, by the way, now I need to toss the 2 sinks again, which I did. Crate is incredibly fast. It's very easy to get like massively out of range without even noticing, like I just did right now. I'm like 10 clicks out all the Cyclops that I was fighting. The other tricky thing is you have to constantly pay attention to mines that exist all around here, and which are incredibly hurtful if you happen to accidentally slam into one. Flying flight assist off, especially when you're orbiting downwards, kind of makes it relatively and comparatively easy to accidentally slam into a mine. They also don't show up on your scanner until they're very, very close, so you can't rely on your scanner to say, hey, there's one right behind you. Alright. As you can see with the scanner, I'm able to sub-target the hearts. You need a scanner to be able to do that, which is something you generally want to do if you're using a gimbal weapon, but it's really the only way to actually hit the hearts with a gimbal weapon. Now this is a shutdown field heart. If I manage to stay cold, which I think so far I have been able to, yep, I did, it will not trigger at all. As I don't have a shutdown field neutralizer on the ship yet, as I reserve the space for the new module, I'd rather not get shut down. Getting shut down also disable your caustic sink launches entirely, so you start taking caustic damage if that happens, which is annoying. As you can see, a simple Klops, which normally takes very little effort to take down in normal space, is making me work for it here in the Maelstrom kind of environment. I can't imagine how much more difficult the harder variants which you find in here are. And you find all variants in here. You'll find Hydras, you'll find Medusas, you'll find Basilisks, and you'll find plenty of these Cyclops. Alright. The shield is down. That is the last heart. Last heart is down. Targeting center mass again. And we're basically out. I need to empty our heat sinks again. All the hearts are down. Now it's just a matter of finishing it off. Despite the sort of jerking back and forth tidal effects, gimbals do a reasonably decent job at staying for a good amount of time on target, which makes them serviceable. As I mentioned though, fixed weapons are incredibly difficult to use, and I don't think I could effectively use fixed weapons in this kind of environment. Alright. Shield is down, and now we go in for the final pass. Oof. There we go. One Cyclops down, and several good reminders about things I need to do before I'm ready for next week. Let's see, by the way, if there's anything interesting to pick up here. Well, Not particularly. This is all stuff I have a reasonably good amount of. Oh, I do have a collectible imprint, so I might as well go grab that stuff since it's stuff I can always use more of. This is just a caustic cloud where that thing just died, so I'm trying sort of see if I can get at least reasonably out of range. Well, I think I'm gonna run out of caustic sinks before I have a chance to pick them up, so it might not be something that may be practically feasible. So never mind. Caustic shards I'm completely full of, so I don't need those. I am now in the caustic cloud, as you can tell, that make like the caustic sink launcher fill up incredibly fast. And there you go. We filled up all of our caustic sink launchers. We're completely out, and we still have caustic. So now we have to turn silent running on, which I need to do manually because I don't have a keybound for it right now, and we have to fire at empty space until we kind of cook ourselves enough to burn the caustic off. Should be soon. There you go. And then we turn this off and wait until we cool off. And we're in the clear. Now, again, a few things I need to do. I need to remap my scoop button so that it's now back to silent running, as I don't need the cargo scoop for hooning in this configuration, but I do need silent running. Silent running looks good. And then I need to set my pips configuration so that I'm flying as I want to fly on this ship, which is... How do I want to fly? I think the best configuration for the ship has one pip in sys, and then some combination of like probably 2.5 and 2.5, like this, in each of the engine web. And you don't really touch this, as you do need a pip and sys, because you need a system capacitor to fire caustic sink launchers. Those actually require sys power to fire. But you don't need a lot of weapon capacitor, as enhanced multi-cannons just don't really need. I mean, I see them firing right now, it does not deplete the capacitor. I think it might actually even go to 1 and they still won't deplete. Now 2 of them are reloading, so give it a moment, see when like they're all full firing. There you go. And even with a beam, like it kind of very slowly depletes. Like if you fire them all with like beam, 2 barely sufficient, and then sort of like with the reloading pause, there should be more than enough to sort of like actually recharge. If we put 3 pips in web, it's essentially stable, if not entirely loaded. So 1, 2, 3 is probably like the sort of like ideal configuration that keeps you stable. There you go. And that's it. I think I have what I need to be ready for next week. Goalie to Mankind, and we'll see you when the Maelstroms finally become accessible.